There are people who love the ones around them. They genuinely do. They laugh at the right moments. They care about the stories being told. They feel warmth toward the person sitting across from them at the table. And then they go home, close the door, and feel something that takes a while to name. Not sadness, not relief exactly. Something closer to the feeling after a long swim, when your muscles have given everything they had, and now the only thing left is stillness. A particular kind of quiet that the body asks for before the mind even understands why. This is the exhaustion that doesn't make sense. The tiredness that comes not from people you dislike, but from people you love. People you chose. People who matter to you deeply. And if you've ever sat with that feeling and thought, something must be wrong with me, this conversation is for you. There's a particular kind of guilt that lives in sensitive people. It's the guilt of needing to leave a room that felt good, of checking your phone during a dinner you were genuinely enjoying, not because you were bored, but because some part of you was already counting down, of feeling relief when you finally close the door behind you, and then feeling ashamed of that relief. Most people don't talk about this, because how do you explain it without sounding ungrateful? How do you say I love you, and being with you costs me something without it sounding like a complaint or a withdrawal? You don't. So you stay quiet. You smile a little longer. You say, I'm just tired when someone asks, because the real answer is too complicated and too strange and too likely to be misunderstood. But here's what I want you to hear before anything else. This exhaustion is not a flaw. It is not a sign that you love people less. It is not evidence that you are broken, cold, or incapable of real connection. It is a sign that your nervous system works differently, and that difference has a name, a psychology, and a long philosophical history that most people never get to hear. Carl Jung spent decades studying what he called the introvert, not as a casual social label, but as a fundamental description of where a person's energy flows. For extroverts, Jung observed, energy moves outward. Social interaction charges them. The presence of others is fuel. They come home from a party feeling more alive than when they arrived. For introverts, the opposite is true. Energy moves inward. The inner world, thought, reflection, imagination, solitude, is where they recharge. Social interaction, even enjoyable social interaction, draws from a reserve that needs time to refill. Jung would say that you are not running away from people. You are running toward yourself, toward the place where your energy lives and where your sense of self is restored. And this is not a weakness. In Jung's framework, the introvert's inner life is often extraordinarily rich, full of depth, nuance, and a capacity for reflection that the outer world rarely rewards and almost never fully understands. But the outer world rarely explains it either. So you grew up thinking the problem was you. Here's the part almost no one explains. The exhaustion you feel around people you like is not about them. It's not about the quality of the relationship or the depth of the love. It's about the nature of social engagement itself, what it asks of your nervous system, regardless of who is doing the asking. When you are with people, even safe people, even beloved people, your brain is working. It is tracking tone of voice, reading facial expressions, monitoring the emotional temperature of the room. It is choosing words carefully, managing how you come across, staying attuned to what the other person needs. It is performing the invisible labor of connection, the labor that most people never see because it happens entirely beneath the surface. For some people, this labor is light, almost automatic. They barely notice it happening. For you, it is not light. It is not automatic. It is real work. Meaningful work. Work you are often very good at. But work that leaves a mark on you long after the evening ends. And the more you care about the person, sometimes, the more carefully you work. Because you don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to say the wrong thing. You want the connection to be real, not just present. You want to give them something genuine, not just your performance of being there. That care costs energy, and energy runs out. I remember a dinner once, years ago, with someone I loved very much. We talked for hours. It was one of those evenings that feels rare. The kind where the conversation goes somewhere real, where you both say things you didn't plan to say, where you leave knowing something true happened between you. The kind of evening you remember years later, not because of what was said, but because of how it felt to be fully known. I drove home feeling full and empty at the same time. Full because something genuine had passed between us. Empty because I had given everything I had to that genuineness, and now there was nothing left. Not nothing in a sad way. Nothing in the way a field looks after harvest. Spent. Quiet. Needing time before it can grow again. I sat in my car in the parking lot for a long time before going inside. Not because I was sad, not because anything had gone wrong, but because I needed the silence before I could be myself again, before the thoughts could settle, before I could feel where I ended and the evening began. I used to think that pause meant I hadn't really enjoyed the evening, that if I had truly loved it, I would have wanted more. I would have called someone on the drive home. I would have stayed longer. Now I understand it differently. The pause was the proof. I had been fully present, fully there, and full presence for someone like me requires recovery. Not because the evening was too much, but because I had given it everything I had. Jung called this the tension of the opposites, the way that what nourishes us can also deplete us, and what depletes us can also be the source of our deepest meaning. You love people, you need solitude. Both are true, both are real, and they are not in conflict. They are in conversation with each other, each one making the other more possible. The exhaustion you feel after connection is not a sign that the connection failed. It is a sign that it was real. Shallow interactions rarely drain you this way. It's the ones that matter, the ones where you showed up fully, where you were genuinely present, where something real was exchanged, that leave you needing silence afterward. This is where most people completely misunderstand you. They see you pulling away after a good evening and assume something went wrong. They see you declining the next invitation and assume you didn't enjoy the last one. They see your need for recovery as rejection, as distance, as a sign that you don't care. But it isn't rejection. It is the natural rhythm of a person whose depth requires replenishment. It is the tide going out so it can come back in. If we go one layer deeper, something important appears. For many sensitive people, the exhaustion is not only about energy, it is also about vigilance. Growing up, many of you learned, often without realizing it, that social situations required careful navigation. Maybe you were the child who read the room before entering it, who adjusted yourself to match the emotional needs of the adults around you, who learned, quietly and early, that being too much or not enough had consequences you wanted to avoid. You became skilled at attunement, at sensing what others needed and providing it before they even asked, at being present in a way that made others feel seen and held and comfortable. This is a gift, a real one, but it is also exhausting in a way that goes beyond simple introversion, because you are not just managing your own experience in social situations. You are often managing everyone else's too. You notice when someone feels left out. You feel the tension in the room before anyone names it. You adjust your energy to keep things comfortable, to smooth the edges, to make sure no one leaves feeling worse than they arrived. You carry the emotional weight of the gathering in a way that no one assigned to you and no one will thank you for. And when you get home, you are not just tired from being social. You are tired from being responsible for the emotional experience of the people around you. Jung would call this a kind of unconscious caretaking, a pattern that often develops in people who learned early that love required performance and that safety required attentiveness. That being loved meant being useful. That belonging meant being needed. It is not your fault. It was adaptive. It made sense once. It may have protected you in ways you'll never fully know, but it is worth knowing it's happening, because once you see it, you can begin to choose how much of it to carry and how much to gently set down. There is a distinction worth making here, a quiet but important one, There is a difference between social exhaustion and social avoidance. Social exhaustion is what happens after genuine connection, the natural depletion that follows real presence, real care, real engagement. It is healthy, it is honest, it is the body's way of saying you were truly there. Social avoidance is something different. It is the pattern of withdrawing before connection begins, not because you need recovery, but because you fear what connection might cost, or reveal, or require of you. It is the quiet closing of doors before anyone knocks. Both can look the same from the outside. Both involve going home early, declining invitations, preferring solitude to gatherings. But they feel different from the inside. Social exhaustion feels like rest after effort, like the quiet after music, like the satisfaction of having been somewhere real. Social avoidance feels like relief mixed with something heavier. A low-grade loneliness, a sense of missing something, a question that doesn't quite go away when you turn off the light. You may recognize both in yourself. Most sensitive people do, if they're honest. And recognizing the difference is not about judging yourself. It is about understanding what you actually need on any given evening. Sometimes you need rest. Sometimes you need courage. And the wisdom, the quiet, hard-won wisdom, is in learning to tell the difference. So what do you do with this? Not in a prescriptive way. Not in a, here are 5 steps to fix your social battery way. But in a gentle, honest, practical way. The kind that respects your intelligence and your experience. The first thing is permission. Permission to leave when you need to leave. Permission to say, without elaborate explanation, I need some time alone now. Not as an apology, not as a confession, just as information about how you work, the same way you might say you're hungry or cold. The people who truly care about you will learn this rhythm. They will come to understand that your withdrawal is not about them, and the ones who can't, who take your need for solitude as a personal rejection, who make you feel guilty for having limits, are showing you something important about the nature of the relationship. The second thing is knowing your threshold before you cross it. Most sensitive people wait too long. They stay past the point of depletion, trying to prove, to themselves, to others, that they can keep up, that they are not fragile, that they are fine. And then they crash, and the crash is harder than it needed to be, and the recovery takes longer, and the guilt is heavier. What if you left a little earlier? What if you said yes to fewer things, but showed up more fully to the ones you chose? What if you trusted that a shorter, genuine presence was worth more than a longer, depleted one? Thoreau believed that the quality of your presence was directly related to the quality of your solitude. That you cannot give what you have not first gathered. That the person who never goes inward has nothing real to offer when they go outward. Your solitude is not selfishness. It is not withdrawal. It is preparation. It is the gathering of something real that you will eventually bring back to the people you love. The third thing, and perhaps the most quietly radical of all, is to stop apologizing for how you work. Not loudly, not as a declaration or a manifesto, just internally. Just in the private conversation you have with yourself at the end of the day. When you're reviewing everything you said and did and wondering if it was enough. You are not broken because you need more recovery than other people. You are not cold because you love people and still need to be away from them. You are not failing at relationships because connection costs you something. You are someone whose inner world is rich enough to require tending. And that is not a problem to solve. It is a life to understand and eventually to honor. Imagine a version of your life, not far from where you are now, but slightly more honest, where you stop fighting your own rhythm, where you plan your week with your energy in mind, not just your obligations, where you say yes to the things that genuinely matter and no to the things that only drain without giving anything back, where you let yourself leave early without the guilt that follows you home like a shadow, where you stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand and start trusting the ones who already do. The rare few who see your quietness not as a problem to fix, but as a depth to respect. where you recognize that your capacity for deep, quiet, genuine connection, the kind that happens in small rooms with one or two people, the kind that leaves both of you changed, the kind that you remember years later, is rarer and more valuable than the easy, frictionless socializing that exhausts you. You are not someone who can't connect. You are someone who connects deeply. And depth requires space. Depth requires recovery. Depth requires the silence that comes after, so that what happened between you can settle into something lasting. Jung spent his later years writing about individuation, the lifelong process of becoming more fully yourself, not more acceptable to others, not more comfortable in crowds, not more productive or more social or more anything that the world rewards, more yourself. For you, that process may involve learning to trust the exhaustion, to hear it not as failure, but as signal, to let it guide you gently, honestly, toward the kind of life that actually fits the person you are. That life is quieter than the one most people celebrate. It has fewer evenings out and more mornings alone. It has fewer acquaintances and more depth with the few who remain. It has more silence and more of the kind of meaning that silence makes possible. But it is yours, and it is real, and it is more than enough. You came here tonight, or this morning, or this quiet afternoon, carrying something you didn't quite have words for. The strange guilt of being tired by people you love. The confusion of needing to leave rooms that felt good. The loneliness of not being able to explain any of this without sounding ungrateful or strange or like someone who doesn't know how to love properly. I hope something here gave that feeling a shape, a name, a little more room to breathe without judgment. But there's another question that often lives just beneath this one. A quieter, harder question that tends to surface in the dark when the evening has ended and the silence has finally arrived. If you need this much solitude, if connection costs this much, does that mean you will always be a little alone? Does it mean the kind of closeness you want, the kind that doesn't exhaust you, the kind that feels safe and easy and real, is simply not possible for someone like you? That question deserves its own conversation, a slower one, a more careful one that doesn't rush toward reassurance, but sits with the real weight of what you're asking. And it's waiting for you in the next quiet chapter of this. Alone Together, a quiet corner of the internet for people who choose solitude over half-hearted connections.